Christmas!
Welcome to Ill-Equipped History, where two best friends tell you a story about something that happened once upon a time. I'm Emileigh, and this is Morgan.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm so good. I missed you so much. It's been like
God.
8 years since we've recorded an episode.
It's really sad. It makes my heart sad when we don't do this every week. So,
I know.
or every other week. I'm like, I need my bestie.
I miss you. And I wasn't able to contact you for an entire week, and it was awful.
I know. It was a lonely Thanksgiving without being able to talk to you.
I know. When I got back in service, I had like so many messages wishing me happy Thanksgiving, and it was Sunday, and I was like, happy belated Thanksgiving. Sorry, my phone wasn't in service.
We literally had this whole like text thread going with Corey and Sarah, and then you just popped in like 4 days later and was like, hey, I caught up on it all.
Sorry.
That's okay. So how was the cruise? Tell me all about it. Tell us all about it.
It was incredible. Kyle is screaming outside. I don't know why. It was awesome. Turks and Caicos was incredible. My mom and stepdad and I went snorkeling, which was incredible. The reef was beautiful, and one of our guides was like feeding the fish, so he just had schools of like hundreds of fish like circling around him, and he was like, come over here, and so we could like swim with the fishes.
I'm jealous.
And then
so jealous.
We went to a little island, and we got to pet and hold and smooch stingrays, and it was awesome.
Oh, I've done that before. That is so fun. I want to do it as an adult.
It's great. My mom kissed a stingray, and I'm very proud of her because I didn't think she would do that in a million years, but she did. And they gave us rum punch on our way back, and my mom didn't want hers, so I had hers, and I drank 4 very quickly, and then I got drunk very fast, so I went back to the boat and took a nap.
Nice.
But the cruise itself was a lot of fun. There was like game shows every night, a lot of trivia, a lot of alcohol. My parents,
that happens.
Yeah, they were in the casino. Me and my mom played blackjack one night, and we just had my mom is one of the funniest people on the planet.
On this planet, on the face of this earth. I love your mother. So I'm like in stitches every time I'm with your mom. She's so funny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, really quick story. I know this is going to take a long time, but because I'm an adult, like spending like a lot of time with my mom has been a lot harder because we're both adults living not different lives, but you know, like she's got her own life, I've got my own life, and so
adulting is busy, so yeah.
And there's usually, like, when I do see her, like, she's entertaining people, she has her friends over, so this trip was really good for us to just, like, reconnect, and she literally had me hiccuping on the way down, on the plane, leaving from Nashville. I thought I was going to throw up. She had me laughing so hard. We were just chatting, but we were, like, kind of like we are right now. Like, we weren't whispering. Yeah. It was a pretty late flight, and a lot of we were the only people talking on this plane. And I mean, you know, I love my mother. She does not have a filter whatsoever, and so the person in front of us asked her if she could keep it down because his like girlfriend and her daughter were trying to sleep.
Yeah.
And then for the next, like, 30 minutes, anytime I made any noise at all, she shushed me very loudly. And apparently my stepdad was next to her, and she was like, he was trying to take a nap, and he was like, I can't really take a nap because you keep elbowing me. And my mom was like, am I just obnoxious? And was like flailing her arms and shushing for the next 20 minutes, and I was literally like crying into my shirt and hiccuping because I was laughing so hard. And that was like the entire trip. I was so tired when I came back just because I laughed so much. When we played blackjack, the table is a full table, and she had the entire table like yelling and laughing, and we were just having the best time. We were on a first name basis with everyone. I got tired. I literally lived like my best introverted homebody self. I was in bed by 10 every night.
Oh my god, that's lovely.
And I had my own room, and it was a balcony room, so I just like only heard the waves as it passed by, and it was really nice. But I got up to leave, and when we were playing blackjack, to go to bed, and everyone was like super sweet, and my mom, there's this one lady that was like, I'm gonna buy you a drink. The drinks are free, but I'm still gonna buy you a drink. And the next day, a few of the people saw my mom and were like, it's you, Mom! Because they didn't know her name, because I kept calling her Mom. And they're like, where's Morgan? Even the dealer was like, where's Morgan at? And I was like, the only reason people know my name is because of my mom, which is kind of like elementary school. But, it's fine.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay.
And then on Sunday, our boat landed at like 8, and our flight didn't leave till 10 p.m. So we spent the whole day at Universal Studios, and it was a lot of fun. Nice. And there's a new roller coaster there called the Velocicoaster, and it is my new favorite roller coaster ever.
That sounds awesome.
So it's one of those that like starts you off really fast.
Yeah.
And
it just like shoots off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just zoom really fast. And there's like flips and twists and turns, and then you go through this tunnel and you start going even faster. And I thought I felt like my skin was like stretching on my face because I was going so fast. I thought I was going to lose my glasses legitimately, because like we started twisting. I could feel my glasses like start to slide off my face. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. So if you guys go to Universal Studios, in the Jurassic Park section, they have a new roller coaster, and it's very fun. So
I love roller coasters.
How was your Thanksgiving, Emileigh?
Oh my gosh, what a cluster.
Oh no!
Like in a good way. Like it was fine. It was good. It was fine. But I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
It is, upon recording, a couple weeks after Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving Day, I got up, and in our oven, I've complained about it before, is absolute shit.
Yeah.
So I had to make rolls, and I made a bourbon cake, and I made something else. These little cranberry, like, brie bites. They're delicious.
They sound amazing.
Oh my god, they were so good. But the problem is like, I didn't want to try to like fight with my oven and do that. So we got up and went over to my mother-in-law's house very early, baked all of that, immediately started drinking when we got there. And it was fine. Everything's fine. Had a good Thanksgiving, and we did all that, and then the next day, Black Friday, I had been complaining about this oven so much.
For so long.
For years. Literal years. I'm just like, this thing is falling apart. It only heats from the bottom. I can't make anything. So Nick wakes me up, which at first I was like, rude. And then he was like, get up. We're going to Lowe's. And I was like, what? He's like, we're going to go look at ovens. So we got in my Jeep, which is still running, guys.
Yay!
She leaks oil, but she's running. So we get in the Jeep, and we go to a couple different stores, kind of price check, and we purchase a new oven.
Yay!
We got it! And we bought it that Friday, and it was brought to our house on Sunday, and I think I scared the delivery guy. He didn't speak, I don't know where he was from or what accent that was, but it was a very heavy accent, so you could tell he wasn't from here. And I opened the door before he even got to the door, and I went, "Do you have the oven?" And he was like, "Did you order it?" I was like, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm just excited. Can you bring it in here? And, yeah, so we got that on Sunday, and then I sat on the floor, and I watched it air fry wings, because it has an air fryer.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and it has a bread proofing, like, thing. Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, we got a bougie one because
it looks bougie from your pictures.
Oh, it's so bougie. Okay, so this is how it turned into a cluster. So the old oven has all the controls were on the back, like up against the wall. It was a back panel. Well, the new oven has all the controls on the front. Well, because past Emileigh is a lazy piece of shit sometimes, past Emileigh didn't paint behind the old oven. So present Emileigh was like, "Oh shit, I'll go ahead. We'll pull out the old oven. We know it's coming tomorrow. We got the confirmation." We pulled out the old oven, cleaned up under there and everything. 'Cause, just shit happens.
Yeah.
And I touched up the paint because I just keep the paint. So I touched up behind the thing, and I was like, "Well, I've got the mud out from where I had to fix a little spot, and I've got the paint. I'm going to go around, and I am going to fix some holes in the living room."
This is it. Okay.
This is it. So I'm fixing a few holes, and I sand, and then over the weekend, waiting for the oven, I had torn down a small wall in the living room and was fixing the drywall because it has a little bump out because you got to support the roof or whatever.
Yeah.
And it couldn't just be gone, but no. So I'm fixing that, and Nick had taken over kind of patching up the little holes. Tell me why I turn around from fixing my little wall, and I see half the wall from about 5 feet down, 5 feet up down. The entire thing is skimmed, and he's just sanding and rubbing and and I was like, honey, what did you do? He's like, there was texture. Like, I didn't like and I was like, honey, that's just from the paint roller. I'm going to have to prime and paint that whole thing. And he said, I thought you were going to paint it anyway. I was like, eventually, because I want to get the texture off the ceiling first. So now I have a new oven, but my walls are all half mudded. There's a little bump out that is just raw drywall and mud. I've got it skimmed. We have no floor in that little spot. The ceiling where that wall was is patched up, but still needs sanding. And I have to now fix the ceiling before I paint the walls, before I replace the floors. And I have to do that in the kitchen, too, because the kitchen and the living room match. And all the Christmas decorations are just up. So.
Oh, man. Y'all are both a menace to that house.
I think we're a menace to each other. It's just like, I was like, honey, how did you help and then make it worse? Like, I wasn't ready to paint the walls, but I guess now I am.
I'm so baffled because it's like every single wall I've ever encountered has some kind of texture because it's like the drywall and then like the paint, like you said, the roller. Like, it's not like glass.
No, but he is a quality engineer and he makes car parts, and the car parts he makes are painted. So he's got a very keen eye on paint. Like, we will be out in the middle of nowhere, like out in town, and he'll just be like, that quarter panel doesn't match the door, and like on a random car, and I'm just like squinting, and I'm like,
where?
I don't see it. He's like, it doesn't match. I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, so my house is a cluster right
yeah,
now.
sounds like it.
It's fine. And I'm trying to pick out paint colors because I hadn't yet. So, it's fine. Everything's fine.
It's okay.
It's okay. I just got my bedroom done, so why not tear apart another room in the house?
Yeah. You know, it's fine.
Okay, 16 minutes later.
Yeah, you know, it's we just had to catch up to each other on the pod. So
right. This was for y'all's sake. So we're all on the same page now.
Yeah. You guys know exactly like where we're at in our lives.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about someone.
A person.
Okay. A person. Not a place or a thing. Just a person.
But still a noun.
Still a noun. Let's talk about nouns. Okay. It's 1843 in London, and a mother is busy doing household chores when her school-aged daughter bursts through the door, panting. Mama, I saw it at the store today. We need it. We need it.
Whoa there, buddy. What is it exactly that we need?
A book.
Okay.
You have to get it.
I would love to, but you need to tell me which one it is.
Right. It's called, it's by, Darl's Chickens.
Darl's Chickens.
Yep. You know, the guy that wrote, Martian Chustlebutt and Nichols on Nuzzleby.
Do you mean Charles Dickens? The guy who wrote Martin Chuzzlewit and Nicholas Nickleby?
Yeah, that's the one.
How do you know the names of those books? Anyway, never mind. Okay. What's the name of this new book?
A Christmas Carol.
Let's hope so.
I giggled so much making that
one. Martian Chuzzleput. Nichols on Nuzzleby. I think those are great kid approximations, so good job.
Thank you. I took inspiration from my own. So, guys, I'm sure you figured it out by the title, but we are talking about the man that brought us not only Christmas Carol, that's how I'm tying it into Christmas time right now.
Yeah.
Because ta-da, it's Christmas time. So, A Christmas Carol, Oliver Twist, Great Expectations, Bleak House, David Copperfield, The Old Curiosity Shop, and much, much more.
Yes.
So, we're going to talk about, I didn't know, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know jack shit about him. I just know Christmas Carol and really just Oliver Twist. Those were kind of the two. He brought us on a bit of a roller coaster. Y'all are going to see. Do you know a lot about him?
So, there was a movie that came out, oh gosh, like 10 or more years ago that seemed like it was like a fictionalized biopic about Charles Dickens, mostly about him like writing A Christmas Carol, but I don't know how accurate that was to his true life.
Right. Well, we're going to get as accurate as the 1800s will allow us.
Okay.
So, I did watch a couple documentaries and kind of piece together what I found. I did find this one website. It will be in the show notes. And it is like a website dedicated to Charles Dickens and dates and things like that. And they have, there's one link that'll take you directly to his kids, because there's a lot of them. We will talk about them a bit. But he had opinions about his kids, and I think everyone should go read those, because one of them was like, he called one of his daughters like Hellfire or something, because she had opinions and a temper. Like she was
a spitfire.
Yeah, she was something. So, all right, let's take it back to his childhood.
Right.
So in 1812, he was born in Portsmouth on February the 7th to John and Elizabeth Dickens. And he was born on a Friday at midnight. And apparently, from what he was told, he started crying. He was born on midnight, started crying the moment that the clock struck midnight. So it was like dark and spooky. He's born, the clock strikes, and he starts crying. So it's like a spooky. And then we don't really bring this up except like once, but he would go on to think that like Fridays were sort of an omen for him.
Okay.
I don't know whether that's good or bad, but the house he was born in is actually still standing.
Neat.
And that's pretty impressive because it definitely went through World War II and didn't get bombed. So
how lucky for the house.
Right? For real. John, his father, was a clerk in the Navy pay office. From the jump, he was the second of, I believe, 3 or 4 kids. From the jump, they were not very wealthy. They were kind of on the poor side, but they were making ends meet.
Okay.
He said that his family was very happy and cheerful and, young couple in love, just had a couple kids and
just making it work.
Just
getting by.
Making it work, yeah. And apparently he was a very jovial kid. He would put on plays in the living room and entertain and all that. And for the rest of his life, entertainment definitely was at his core. So that he was born in 1812. In 1815, a little thing called the Napoleonic Wars ended. So him and his family were stationed in the Portsmouth area, but when the Napoleonic Wars ended, his dad ended up being recalled back to London because the Navy didn't have to have all those, stations out there.
Okay.
So at the age of 3 years old, they went to London, and unfortunately, his father's pay decreased because he wasn't getting that extra
the active duty,
the active duty and out of port pay anymore.
Okay.
I forgot what they call it, but basically port pay. So his father very quickly started falling into debt. In 1817, they moved a lot. I'm cutting out a lot of them. They moved to Chatham, and that is near Rochester in Kent.
Okay.
And he really, at this age, he was, 5-ish, really started to get to know people and was said to have a keen eye for character. And these are very formative years. So he's really absorbing a lot of things. I'm just kind of comparing it to my kids, at 5 and 7. They are absorbing the world.
Yeah, that's what you do at that age, because your brain is just give me info.
Yeah, tell me. So, instances like a woman named Mary Weller, who was a servant in the household and took care of the kids, told him stories, awfully graphic stories of landlords who turned guests into meat pies, and a gothic horror called Captain Murderer.
It is I, Captain Murderer, beloved children's fairy tale character.
I'm actually a pretty nice guy.
Mr. Murderer was my father.
You should really look out for my cousin, Captain Flowers.
He's Jack the Ripper.
So when I say he was taking inspiration, he 30 years after, I bumped my microphone, my bad, y'all. So 30 years after Mary Weller was telling him these stories, he ended up pretty much putting her in his novel David Copperfield, and other friends of his ended up being in other novels.
Okay.
So John, his father, kept going deeper and deeper into debt, and, you know, over the years, they had more kids. Get this shit. John borrowed £200. Can you convert that real quick?
Okay. So 200 British pounds in 1817 is equivalent to 21,471 British pounds. And then that's equivalent to about $27,000. $27,414 in US dollars.
So he borrowed essentially $27,000 in 1817 to move. That would be £200 back then. Mm-hmm. Agreed to pay back £26 a year for the rest of his life. John was in his 30s.
I have to do more math really, really quick. Hang on.
I mean, just if we do 25 instead of 26, it would only take like 8 years to get back up to that 28 pounds or 200 pounds.
Let's assume he lived like 30 more years to the age of 60. I feel like that's reasonable for that time frame. Yeah. That would be like 780 pounds.
Oh my God.
He's like paying a student loan back.
Yeah, for real. So, John had convinced Elizabeth's brother to co-sign for this borrowing of money. They didn't use the word co-sign, but I don't know. Of course, he couldn't pay it back.
Of course.
So, Elizabeth's brother was now on the hook.
Oh,
and it definitely made family relations strained.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
He was supposed to pay it back for the rest of his life. I'm sure his brother wasn't super thrilled about that. No.
So, Charles did have good times with his father during this period. His dad would take him on these walks through Rochester, which was very close to where they lived. They were basically the same town. And they would see this old mansion called Gad Hill Place. And his father would tell him things like, if you work really hard, one day you'll be able to own a house like this. Not this one, but one like this. Mm-hmm. And I think the conversations he had with his dad really like kind of lit a fire under his butt. Charles started going to school in 1821. Unfortunately, in 1824, John Dickens, his father, was imprisoned for debt.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get people to pay.
Right. So, you imprison them.
Yeah, where they can't work. Anywho, he was put in the Marshalsea prison. Unfortunately, during that time, if you were put in prison for debt and you couldn't pay, you know what they would do with the dependents of that person?
Put them to work, probably.
Put them in prison with him.
Oh, how is that even helpful?
Yeah. So, Charles had been sent to work at Warren's blacking factory like days before his father got sent off to prison. So Charles is working now. He got pulled out of school and sent to work.
How old was he?
His dad went to prison. He is 12.
Aw.
And then his dad went to prison. And then his mom and siblings went to prison too. So now Charles is working to try to clear his father's name. And his dad had already messed up family relations, so his brother-in-law isn't going to come and, like, save him again.
Right.
Eventually, his, like, a distant family relative sent some inheritance or something like that, and they were all freed in May. They were in prison for, like, 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So, they returned back to London, and John just went back to his clerk job. Like, nothing happened. Wow. Yeah. So, as soon as Charles is still working at this Warren's blacking factory. And what they made there was boot polish. So he would work all day putting labels on boot polish cans. And he hated it because he is a free spirit. He loved school. He wanted to learn. He wanted to do all that. Now he's just doing like
the most repetitive movement over and over and over again. Yeah. Mind-numbing. Mind-numbing.
And, the kids around him weren't very happy to be there either, so they were kind of bullies and mean, and everyone was just... Aww. Yeah. So, John pulled him out of the boot polish. Wow, words are hard. Pulled him out of the boot polish place and sent him back to school. Well, Elizabeth, his mother, wanted to send him back to the boot polishing place. Honestly, I hate this. I hate this so much, but I can understand her mentality.
Yeah.
Where she's like, someone needs to be making money, and obviously your dad is not doing a good job because he just continues to get into more and more debt. Yeah. And we're struggling over here. But John put his foot down, sent Charles back to school. And this whole incident did a couple things. It really solidified, like, his mindset of, like, child labor. Mm-hmm. And if you notice in his writings, I haven't really read a whole lot of his writings, but apparently the mother figure isn't always the best written as far as, like, likability.
Yeah.
He really held a grudge against his mom on this aspect because he's like, I can't believe you wanted to send me back. And even though she's like, I'm sure apologized and like tried to justify it, mm-hmm. he just, something he couldn't forgive her for.
Yeah. And you can see both sides of their
oh, absolutely.
Their thought process and their emotions behind that.
Yeah. It was a complicated time. Like, it was a complicated thing because, unfortunately, child labor was prevalent.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure
she just got out of 6 months in a prison
with her daughters. Yeah. That's not even her debt. It's her husband's debt.
Mm-hmm. So, thankfully, in 1825, he was able to attend Wellington House Academy. He stayed for 2 years before, big surprise, Daddy can't pay anymore.
I can't believe he was able to go in the first place. I'm sure he took out a massive loan to get in there.
Oh, Jesus. So, in 1827, the family was evicted for non-payment. And he did have to leave the school, but he had those 2 solid years of schooling under his belt, and his mom was able to get him a position as a junior clerk at Ellis and Blakemore. He was very popular there. He was still outgoing and very personable, and I wouldn't say, no one really called him loud or boisterous, but he had a big personality.
Yeah.
So, thankfully, he's 15 at this point, which is crazy to say he could, make his own decisions, but...
You're basically an adult when you're 15.
Yeah. In 1827, you're straight up an adult at 15.
Yeah.
You have no choice. So, between 1828 and 1829, he actually learned shorthand and worked as a freelance reporter at Doctors' Commons. And he also started acting in amateur theatricals.
Ooh.
And his goal was to be a parliamentary journalist.
Okay.
Yeah. So, by the end of the 1820s, he actually succeeded in that, and he was reporting on the proceedings of the House of Commons.
Well, good for him. He accomplished his dream.
He did. And all, before the age of 20.
That's very impressive.
Yeah. And this is kind of interesting. We start to see his family kind of just fall to the wayside. I'm going to mention his dad a couple more times. No, neither of the documentaries that I watched even mentioned his dad really past this point, or his family too much. I don't know what happened to him. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea. So, in 1830, he falls in love with a woman named Maria Beadnell. After a 3-year courtship,
wow,
she rejected him.
Aww.
Why lead him on like that? Come on.
3 years?
3 years.
You have plenty of time to tell him no.
Right. And during this time, his dad was declared broke in the newspaper again. So apparently they used to publish this shit.
Public shaming. You are poor.
How dare you be in debt, sir?
Oh my gosh, how awful is that?
Man, the 1800s was a wild ass time. Like, why? I literally wrote, his dad was declared broke in the newspaper around the same time, which couldn't help with the ladies.
I'm sure. They're like, well, okay, you're not inheriting jack shit. Okay.
You're inheriting debt. Like, you're in the negative, buddy.
Yeah.
So, some say he turned to writing to soothe his, bruised ego and heart.
Yeah.
He was having a bad time in 1830.
It sounds like it.
He was 18 at this point. So, between 1831 and 1834 is when he worked as the parliamentary reporter. And in 1832, he did try to be an actor, but apparently he got sick and couldn't keep the appointment.
Aww.
And in 1833, he published his first story, A Dinner at Poplar Walk, in the monthly magazine. So this is where we start seeing him write short stories that are published in the newspapers and magazines. He was just kind of rapid fire writing shit. And he picked up the pen name Boz. B-O-Z.
Okay.
Why? I don't know. Why did Dickens use... Let me just see if I can quickly... Oh. Apparently it was a nickname given by his brother.
Okay.
So he started using the name Boz. And that kind of stuck with him for the rest of his life. I mean, he did put Charles Dickens on a lot of things, but it's not anything he,
Yeah.
got rid of. He started reporting to the Morning Chronicle, and around this time in 1833 is when we see him become financially independent.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he was like, bye, like flipping his parents off, running away, like, no, I'm not doing it. And he went to Furnicles Inn. Sorry, I have a hard time saying it. Furnicles Inn. It's basically like the 1800s version of an apartment building.
Okay.
So apparently in 1834, John continued to rack up debt, and he ended up having to, borrow money from his friends to keep his dad out of prison.
Aww.
Yeah. So.
That's so hard.
This is pretty much the last time I see anything that has anything to do with his dad.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he just cut his dad off. And
I wouldn't.
I can't.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. Dad, I love you, but you've literally just bogged me down my entire life because you cannot make good financial decisions.
Yeah.
I don't.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. Later, I forget which novel it is, but there's a character that makes poor financial decisions and is giving advice like, oh, you make £20 a year, you need to spend 19.95 of it to be happy. Like, it...
Yeah.
He pretty much made I'm pretty sure if you introduced yourself to Charles Dickens and made an impression, he would put you in a book. Like, that's... He saw people for the characters that they were. So he was kind of developing a little bit of a following, putting these short stories in the papers and the chronicles and all of that jazz. And a guy named George Hogarth invited him to be George Hogarth was appointed the editor of the Evening Chronicles. George asked Charles to, like, put some of his stories in that. And George really liked Charles, like, as a person. Mm-hmm. And Charles was visiting George one day, and he met the family's eldest daughter, Catherine, who was 19. Charles apparently invited her to his 23rd birthday party, and within a matter of 3 months, they were engaged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then he started writing his Sketches of London for the Evening Chronicles. So that's happening about the same time. And in 1836, the collections of the Sketches of London were published into a book called Sketches by Boz. And he got about £100 from this.
Nice.
Yeah. Which we established is what?
Like
20
12?
Yeah, about $12,000. Today's money. £12,000, sorry. So, after that was published, within days, the publishers Chapman and Hall approached him to write stories based around a sporting club. And they had something specific in mind, but he was like, I've kind of got my own ideas. And they were like, cool, roll with it. And what came out of that was the Pickwick Papers. Have you heard of these before?
Maybe. Okay,
let me read to you the full official title. The posthumous papers of the Pickwick Club, containing a faithful record of the preambulations, perils, travels, adventures, and sporting transactions of the corresponding members. So apparently it's just stories about this sporting club that would just go around and do shit. And I haven't read them. The illustrations give me the vibe of, like, they're funny and jovial and
like a it makes me think of a precursor to, like, the Sunday Funnies, where it's just like a little quick thing that you read to laugh at and then, like, you move on.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I was getting. So there were 20 monthly installments from April of 1836 to November of 1837. And this was published, like, at the end, they would all be published as a full volume.
Okay.
And the first illustration was illustrated by a guy named Robert Seymour. And the documentary just threw this one out, mate. He was like, yeah, the first one was a different guy, but then by the time the second one came about, Robert had committed suicide, so he had to find another person. Like, yeah. So, but he was able, unfortunately, because of this very tragic incident, he was able to handpick his illustrator named Hablet Knight Brown. I do have a picture of him. It would be...
I see.
The yellow one, yeah.
He has a beardy beard.
It's a beard. It is a beard. I
Robust.
mean, like, listen, love the beard. I love it.
It's huge. It, like, literally,
it's
like, defies gravity.
It's bushy. It's thick.
Girl, it's thick.
It's good. So Hamlet was kind of quiet and shy, like the complete opposite of Dickens, but they would have this working relationship for, like, ever now.
Okay.
And Hamlet Knight Brown is a tiny bit of a mouthful. Mm-hmm. And he, like Dickens did Boz, he shortened his name on a lot of his illustrations to Fizz. P-H-I-Z.
Foz, so we got Boz and Fizz.
Boz and Fizz. That's just adorable names. So, the first installation of the Pickwick Papers had printed about 400. Within the next few, they were printing upwards of 40,000.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And they were going around the world.
That's
so
really
this
cool.
These little short stories from London were being, like, broadcast around the world. Someone found the names of Pickwick characters carved in one of the Great Pyramids in Egypt. Like, graffitied. Yes!
Oh my gosh. Humans have not changed.
No! All I thought about was, like, all the drunk carvings in bar bathrooms and, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or, like, going to, like, defacing some kind of statue or, like, art piece with, like, I don't know, like, your name or, like, the name of, like, character, you know.
Like,
you know what happens.
Chelsea was here, and, like...
Yeah.
Guys, this is why we can't have nice things. It's Charles Dickens' fault. So... So, in 1836, it was a big year in 1836. Him and Catherine got married on April the 2nd. And this was way earlier than he had planned, but it was that success from the Pickwick Papers that allowed him to do that. And for their honeymoon, they went to a little place called Rochester.
Oh.
It's cute. Apparently, they say the cottage that the couple stayed in on their honeymoon is still there and standing. It has a plaque. Some say that the actual house was, like, across the street. Doesn't really matter. Either way, it's, like, still standing. So,
yeah.
And he took this honeymoon to get kind of reacquainted with the areas because he hadn't been back in a long time. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to use these monuments and landscapes and vibe in the Pickwick Papers because those were still going on. And Catherine and Charles moved when they got off their, honeymoon, lived in Furnival's Inn, and they were joined by Catherine's 16-year-old sister, Mary Hogarth. Now, at first, I'm like, why is little sister moving in? But apparently, I did look it up, it was normal for unwed sisters to live and just help out.
Yeah.
So that's what Mary was there for. And Charles Dickens became very attached to Mary. So during this period, Charles wrote that even if he were to become rich and famous, he would never be as happy as he was in that small flat with Catherine.
Aww.
Yeah. So apparently also during this time, she would act in plays that he wrote and was very, she was in it. Yeah. So He wrote The Strange Gentleman, and it was produced at the James Theater that year. And the second edition of Sketches by Boz was published in December of that year. So all of this, he's still in his early 20s.
Wow.
Yeah, let that sink in. Wow. So in 1837, the first of his 10 children were born. That's a lot.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, so the first was born in January, literally 9 months after the wedding. So I'm going to let y'all do that math.
Yeah.
And they move into 48 Doughty Street. I don't really know how to say that, but they moved into a better, nicer home. And Catherine suffered very much from postpartum.
Oh, no.
Back then, it's like...
It was hysteria back then, right?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Send her to Dr. Brown. He'll take care of it. Y'all need to get on the Patreon to know what that means. So,
yeah.
They ended up going back to Rochester to cheer her up.
Aww.
But Dickens was busy and he had to like commute back and forth until they were able to kind of get on stable ground. So a tragedy happened that May in 1837. So Mary, the sister, died at the age of 17.
Oh no.
So apparently after an evening at the theater, she collapsed. And the doctor said it was heart failure. And she died the next day in Charles Dickens' arms.
How sad is that? Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, what would cause just a 17-year-old kid to just die? And I'm like, probably all the drugs they were taking back then that they were thinking was for health.
I mean, it could be substances that they weren't aware of. It could be maybe she had like a heart condition.
Exactly.
That was
nobody would know.
Because she's 17.
I thought about that too.
No one's going to think that a 17-year-old has heart problems.
No.
I mean, there could be any number of things. Because it does, even today, it's not common, but it happens sometimes. That's so sad.
Yeah. So he had the words young, beautiful, and good inscribed on her headstone.
Aww.
And he would go on to take a lot of inspiration from her. So Little Nell from the old Curiosity Shop. I'm not familiar with that one either, but apparently Little Nell does die. Spoiler alert, guys. It's only a 200-year-old book. But she dies, and that was basically like him writing her into a story. And apparently, Catherine dealt with Mary's death with what he called extreme calm. Some people think that she didn't really like his preoccupation with Mary. That she was kind of jealous.
I mean, possibly. Or her body just went into shock because she was
that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. Is like, she's already not in the right headspace because she has a 6-month-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
And her sister just died. The one that was living with her.
Yeah. For all we know, her brain went into self-preservation mode, which that happens.
She went on autopilot. So this was the only time that he would ever miss a deadline. But he did because of Mary's death. So this year, kind of next year, he started taking the family to Broadstairs. These names, y'all. Where did y'all come up with it? Someone tell me. I need to know. So he started taking the family to Broadstairs, little seaside town in Kent, in 1837. It took the mother-in-law because she was having a hard time with Mary's death.
Yeah.
And they would stay for a month at a time at a house called Fort House. And it still stands. It is now named Bleak House after his book. And he would conceive Nicholas Nickleby, Oliver Twist, and others there. It was like a big inspiration for him. Oliver Twist was serialized in that year, so in 1837, and it was another just hit. And it's because, I mean, if we think about Oliver Twist, I am familiar with that one, damn it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like political undertones and how we should treat each other, and the genius was like to educate the public on big issues like, child labor, industrialization, wealthy, stuff like that, but keep it entertaining because no one's going to listen if it's a bore, if it's a drag.
Right.
And his works are so timeless because shit like that still applies today. It might not be in the exact same context, but the undertones are the same. And he had this mentality of like how to reach the rich to care about the poor. The whole thing with Oliver Twist was that he was a rich kid that accidentally ended up in this like orphanage working house. And the whole idea behind that was like, not look what's happening to them. It's more like, this is what would happen if this happened to you towards the rich, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like it's which is a similar sentiment, like anything could happen and you could lose everything. And then where are you?
Yeah. And then what would happen if this was you? And then they would care because it's about themselves. It's genius. So, and he never talked about anything political specifically.
Yeah.
He was just there to change the mindset and the climate so that the people who were trying to get things pushed through, the masses were in that mindset of helping others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Genius. So in 1838, he is 26 at this point. So let me take a pause from him. Not really. But let's talk about his family life, because we've talked a whole lot about him, a little bit about Catherine. By the time the later years come around, more or less by like the last 5 kids, things started to change in their marriage. He started to write more and more and more. And Catherine was having the standard Victorian 1 child a year, pretty much.
Yeah.
They would have 10 children that would be born. There were at least 2 miscarriages reported, so at least 12 pregnancies. One daughter, Dora Annie, died at about 8 months old.
Okay.
But all the others lived to at least 20. Some lived to 90. So, the standard lifespan of kids. And they would have Charles, Mary, Kate, Walter, Francis, Alfred, Sidney, Henry, Dora, and Edward. All between 1837 and 1852.
Okay.
So that's a shit ton of kids.
That is.
In 15 years.
Yeah.
Each time, she would just get deeper and deeper into postpartum.
Ugh.
Because, I mean, if she had postpartum bad the first time,
it's just going to expound.
Having it 9 more times. Yeah.
And she's basically constantly either pregnant or postpartum.
For 15 years, she was either giving birth, pregnant, or feeding a child. And apparently he kept blaming her for her excessive fertility and constant state of pregnancy. Buddy, it
takes two to tango.
Yeah, but it's her fault that she's pregnant all the time. And Catherine is having to move all of these kids every single place that he goes.
Yeah.
So, it's really interesting for me because I have this quote here. The first 5 kids, she was still kind of herself.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles said about Catherine when they went to America for the first time that she, quote, she overcame the first difficulties we had to face in the new circumstances, and she showed herself as an experienced traveler. She never complains and never shows fear, even in situations when I would think it was reasonable. She is always cheerful and strong, even though we traveled through very tough lands for a month without any breaks. She easily adapts to any situations and makes me happy with her courage. We're still kind of in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of after these years, 1844, 43, that things kind of start going downhill for their marriage. I just wanted to put that in there, so that's kind of where we're at. They've had a good, 8 years at this point, and then we're going to move on. So, in 1843, Martin Chuzzlewit is serialized. And he has said that this was his favorite work. That it was like top tier, but it didn't sell very well. Which is weird, but at the time, apparently, there was kind of just like this whole decline in book sales. It wasn't like just him, it was just kind of the culture at the time.
Yeah.
It comes and goes. Mm-hmm. So he was, of course, worried about his finances because he's like, I have all these kids. And they keep coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they keep coming. So he was like, I need a way to sell more books. So that October, he was part of like I don't know, maybe like a speaker or something. And he was raising money for the Athenaeum. And this kind of inspired him to write A Christmas Carol. And in the Pickwick Papers, he had included a Christmas scene. So he was like, I'll just come up with like a version of this. He wanted to blend like that nostalgia, sentimentality. And he wanted it to, quote, help open the hearts of the prosperous and powerful towards the poor and the powerless. Which is 100%.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
Yep. He wrote A Christmas Carol in 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
That whole ass book in 6 weeks. By December 19th of that year, it was published. And the first edition sold out by Christmas Eve.
Wow.
In 5 days. Wow. Sold out. And he ended up writing more Christmas stories after that. Kind of like every year.
Yeah.
But this would be the one that stood the test of time. It's
everyone knows A Christmas Carol. If you don't know anything else about Charles Dickens or have even heard his name, you know A Christmas Carol. It's been the fucking Muppets did A Christmas Carol. Like, it has been adapted ad nauseum. Like, in any kind of way.
Yeah.
Any kind of medium. It is one of those timeless stories.
Yeah. And, Tiny Tim and the script, like, literally, when someone is being hateful around Christmas time, You call him a Scrooge.
Yeah.
You bah humbug.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you might not even know what that's from, and you're saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like almost 200 years old.
It's crazy.
It's like 180 years old. Like, oh my God. So this is kind of the time when I said earlier that their marriage was like kind of crumbling.
Yeah.
And in 1856, he goes and purchases none other than Gad's Hill Place in Rochester. The same house his dad said, if you work hard enough, you could buy something like this, but not this one. And he was like, I'm buying it.
I'm going to buy that house.
I'm going to buy it. So, and the transaction was completed on a Friday, which was like,
That's his lucky day.
Yeah, right? And apparently he had a friend gave him like a chalet or something that they put on the opposite side of the street. And they had a tunnel built between the two. So he could go from Gad's Hill to the chalet, because he wrote in the chalet, but he lived in the... So he didn't want people to see him, so they like dug a tunnel.
That is so extra. Oh my God. Like that.
Yeah. So extra.
I have to go to my writing mansion.
Yes, let me go run to the office real quick. Oh, but the office is downstairs. No. The one over there. In the whole other house. So, back to Catherine and Dickens. About to be prepared to be mad, okay? So, she was still very fond of him, but apparently he could barely stand her.
Oh, that's so sad.
And in a letter to his friend, talking to Catherine, he said, quote, I have found that the skeleton in my domestic closet is becoming a pretty big one. He was completely unimpressed with his kids. He thought that they sponged off him, drank too much, that they just weren't very, they had everything they wanted, but like they just weren't very ambitious.
Right. I mean, they've never had to work for anything. They've always had everything they've needed.
Everything. And he said, it was said that he was very cold and very detached from his family. And that after the birth of their last child, more than likely to prevent another child, Dickens ordered to have their room split into two parts and put bookshelves between them.
Wow.
Yeah.
How sad for Catherine, too.
It's awful. Apparently, Catherine just kept kind of like irritating him. And listen.
She's probably like, hey, I'm your wife. Please love me because I love you. And he's like, go away.
Yeah. So apparently, consulting with a friend, Charles was like, they had never been a good match. And that Catherine wasn't meant for him. And he wasn't meant for her. He was too cold and apathetic. And she was too limiting, too overweight, and not beautiful enough, and a bad mother. She was also too nervous, cried too often, and was too jealous. After having 10 children with this woman and saying all those wonderful things about her, she was depressed. Yeah. She needed help.
Yes.
She needed you to stop blaming her for everything. And then one of the documentaries, I'm getting mad again. One of the documentaries said, quote, we can say he should have been a better father and husband, or we could feel a touch of pity to the horrible limitations of our nature, which can make it hard for us to be very good at two different kinds of things at the same time. So you're telling me...
What does that mean?
What he meant was that, he was so focused on writing and not paying attention to his kids that he can only do one or the other. Literally, that's what the Oh, I was fired up. I'm like, you mean to tell me that you can't be nice to your wife and kids because you're too busy writing? It takes you no more time or effort to be kind to them and loving and supporting and still get your books done. That's... they said that and I paused it and I was like...
Excuse me?
Okay. Cool. Wrong. Mm-hmm. Wrong. Let's just... Oh, I was fired up. I'm like...
I'm all fired up.
It's like, look at all the shit I do. And still have a very good... Now, I don't have 10 kids. But, like... The hell? Apparently, in 1851, which is, like... later in their kind of relationship, she published a book. It was a cookbook.
Well, good
it's
for
like
her.
She could do things if she wasn't focused on spitting out kids, like,
and rearing them by herself. It sounds like.
Yes, because he was always busy, always writing. You don't write a book in 6 weeks and not be just like burning the midnight oil, like.
Yeah, that movie that I watched that is like about Charles Dickens, not true to life.
Yeah.
It was a very idealistic, almost, what's the word? There's a word I'm trying to say that means like overly sweet, and I keep trying to say sapphic, and it's not sapphic because that means lesbians. Saccharine. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
I was like, it's not sapphic. What is it? Saccharine. Yes.
It's a bunch of lesbians.
Yeah, very saccharine, fictionalized version of Charles Dickens.
Good to know. Good to know. So, 1857, he directs and acts in Wilkie Collins' The Frozen Deep. And during this time, he meets Ellen Ternan, who is 19. He was
How
45.
Old is he?
Yeah. So, she captivated him completely. Documentaries, one of the documentaries I watched said his relationship with her, quote, plunged the aging author's life into turmoil.
Yeah, because she's a teenager and he has 10 children.
So apparently in 1858, the next year, a bracelet from Charles was delivered to Charles Dickens' house, where his wife and children were. He was like, no, quote, giving presents to the actresses that play part in my place is a regular thing, and you, my dear wife, are too jealous, and you make me tired with these terrible scenes.
He's literally gaslighting her.
Charles insisted that Catherine go to Miss Ternan, hand her the bracelet herself, and apologize for her insulting behavior.
What? Oh my god.
Oh, the tea. I get your tea. Oh my god. It's being
okay. I'm almost out of tea, but oh my fucking god. What an asshole.
Charles had actually, like we mentioned, had met Ellen a year before and rented an apartment for her mother, and her sisters. And Ellen would accompany him everywhere. And according to this, they would not become lovers until 5 years after Charles is like, there's a separation coming. I don't believe that.
I don't buy that for a fucking millisecond.
I don't either.
You don't buy an apartment for this girl and her family because, I just think she's neat. No.
Yeah. That is not how that works. I
No.
just really like her. She's the age of your daughter. Stop it. Ugh. So, in 1858, he started giving public readings because he's the kind of guy, because of his upbringing, and I can totally see this, no money is enough money.
Yeah.
He never feels like he has enough, so he's always trying to make a little extra income. So he started doing public readings to increase his income. This was a really bad time to direct the spotlight legitimately on himself.
Yeah.
Because in 1858, he separated from Catherine that May, which not long after the bracelet incident. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he sent her away to live somewhere else and kept all but one of the children. Her own sister, Georgina, who had been with the family since 1842 when she turned 15 years old, stayed with Charles and the kids to keep the house for him. And that caused a huge scandal.
Oh, yeah.
Because now Charles they think that it's Georgina that he's seeing.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they think that? Because you just cast out your wife, but her sister gets to stay. That's not suspicious at all.
Let me read you this quote that he put out into the public. So,
okay.
I will merely remark of my wife that some peculiarity of her character has thrown all the children on someone else. I do not know, I cannot by any stretch of fancy imagine what would have become of them but for this aunt who has grown up with them, to whom they are devoted, and who has sacrificed the best part of her youth and life to them. She has remonstrated, reasoned, suffered, and toiled again and again to prevent the separation between Miss Dickens and me. Miss Dickens has often expressed to her sense of affectionate care and devotion in her home, never more strongly than within the last 12 months. So Mr. Dickens is saying Miss Dickens is so crazy, she had to leave all her children with someone else to raise. And he's like, without Georgina, I don't know what I would have done. Georgina's the only reason we stayed together so long.
I have pulled a muscle rolling my eyes so far into the back of my head.
Yep.
Oh my god. This fucking guy.
He is just like, sure, his work is great, but he is every single 17th century or 19th century dude. 19th century. He's just every other just fucking dude, putting all the problems on the woman, then blaming her when she's not the exact same person he married, because she can't be. She's not fun 20-year-old Catherine anymore. She's taking care of 10 kids and she's depressed as fuck.
And probably exhausted.
She's tired.
Oh my god, this fucking dude.
So angry. So, it literally wouldn't even be, it would be like years before the whole, like, who actually was the other woman would be revealed. But
yeah,
this was him being like, I can't get rid of Georgina. She means too much to the kids. It has nothing to do with Catherine and I. Yeah. And apparently they would correspond every now and then, I guess when needed. But they never saw each other again.
I don't blame Catherine for never wanting to see Charles again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I wonder, too, if, like, she wanted to and Charles wouldn't let her.
It was said that she wanted him. Okay, I've got more. We're going to finish out Catherine because this is where she kind of falls off.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the rest of Catherine, her death and stuff. So she would live like 9 years longer than Charles.
Okay.
Just so y'all know that when we get there. So apparently neither of her daughters invited Catherine to their weddings. They did inform her about the death of her son Walter. So I don't know if during this time maybe she did have some mental breaks, or if she, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but there was some rift there in the children, and maybe, I don't know if it was like Charles saying, no, I don't want her there and I'm paying for this. I don't know. That's all speculation. I don't know.
Yeah.
So her daughter Kate, I think it was their eldest daughter was Kate, said, quote, "There was nothing terrible about my mother. Just like all of us, she had her problems, but she was a good, kind, and true lady. My poor mother was scared of father, and she had no right to express her opinion. He was never allowed to express what she felt."
I mean, that's the vibe I was getting from your description of how he treated her.
She just wasn't, every time she said something, it was dismissed.
And then, like, if that happens enough times, you're just going to stop trying to engage at all because...
And...
How sad.
Okay. Grab your heart, because it's going to...
Okay.
While on her deathbed in 1879, Catherine gave a collection of letters that she had received from Charles when they were younger to her daughter. Gave them to Kate and said, quote, "Give these to the British Museum that the world may know Charles loved me once."
Aww.
And correct the historical record.
That's so sad.
Yeah, the heartbreak.
This poor woman.
So, in 1859, A Tale of Two Cities was published.
Yeah.
And in 1860, Great Expectations was published. And I'm kind of, obviously, guys, this is not all of his work. I'm trying to hit the high points here. Yeah. I can't go through all of it. And then in 1865, the title is A Literal Train Wreck. So...
Oh, no.
The Staplehurst train wreck of June the 9th, 1865. This was an actual train incident where a lot of people lost their lives or were injured. Among the survivors was Charles Dickens himself, Ellen, and Ellen's mother.
Oh, wow.
So, after making sure that Ellen and Ellen's mother were okay, he actually worked to aid the injured and the dying, at kind of the detriment of his own health. His health had been kind of in question anyway, and he kind of overexerted. He sustained minor injuries, but...
I mean, he was getting close to 60 at this point, wasn't he?
Yeah, let's see, he was born in 1812.
So 1865.
53.
Okay.
53. Yeah. And it said, Dickens sustained minor injuries and long-lasting trauma. So,
wow.
There's that. Relations with Ellen and him were actually put out there because of this train wreck. Like, they had kept it hidden, but then it kind of, went out there. Not that anything happened. And at this point, Catherine is still alive. They never got an actual divorce because that was very taboo, but they did legally separate.
Okay.
In 1867, he went on an American reading tour, and he continued to do these readings, even though he showed all the signs that he had had a stroke in 1869. But he just kept going.
Wow.
And after the stroke, he was like, okay, maybe I'll just write another novel. And that is The Mystery of Edwin Drood. And I like the way the documentary put it. They said, and he began The Mystery of Edwin Drood. I'm paraphrasing. And it would remain that because it was never finished. A mystery. Okay, thanks for that. He did end up going back to Rochester for inspiration for this book, but he ended up passing away. So this is how that happened. So in 1870, on June the 7th, he had another stroke, and he just kind of didn't recover, and he ended up passing away on June 8th. One said June 8th, one said June 9th. You know, somewhere one of those days. Oh. He did die at Gad's Hill. So he did die in his trophy house. In his trophy house. But it's really interesting. He wanted to be buried in the Rochester Cathedral without any fuss. Just like, put my body in there, I'll be good to go. Yeah. And there was like public outcry. They were like, how dare you not put him in Westminster Abbey's Poet Corner? So on June the 14th, against his wishes, they put him in Westminster Abbey Poets Court, and thousands of people filed through. Wow. And in his, I guess the eulogy is what you would call it, where they talk. Yeah. They said, quote, "He who we mourn was the friend of mankind, a philanthropist in the true sense, the friend of youth, the friend of the poor, the enemy of every form of meanness and oppression." End quote. And all I think about is poor Catherine and how that was. That's literally what I was thinking of. So, like, I guess she's exempt from that. Yeah, for real.
Minus all of mankind except for Catherine, who he was a dick to.
An absolute dick. So, that's Charles Dickens, guys.
All right. Thank you. This was very fascinating, and I was not prepared for the humanness of one of the greatest writers of all time.
180 years later, we do have a tendency of putting people like this on this pedestal where we're like, they do absolutely no wrong. I mean, it's Charles Dickens. He wrote A Christmas Carol. The guy that wrote A Christmas Carol definitely wasn't a dick.
He has to be wholesome.
Of course he's wholesome. He's saving Oliver Twist from, like, the work, like, guys, he was kind of a dick sometimes. Yeah. Not all the time, as we can see. I mean, he was doing a lot of good things, but that doesn't make him an infallible person.
He's complicated.
He's complicated. Man, turns out everyone's complicated.
No one's perfect.
No. I was about to say, I'm far from that.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I am complicated.
We're all complicated. And I really like learning this side to people. Because like you were saying, like we do put people in history on a pedestal if they did like notable things. Yeah. That seem like they're good, Yeah. And it looks like I don't want to say he was a good person, but I think he cared a lot about things he was passionate about, and he had a sense of right and wrong as far as society goes. Yeah. And he wanted to influence people to be like, think of the people who don't. And I mean, he came from people who are less fortunate.
Right.
And he was like,
he worked in the child labor jobs. Yeah. Like, he did the things.
So, complicated person.
Yeah.
Thanks for covering him.
You're welcome. I was literally researching. I'm like, I need something that's kind of Christmassy, but last year we covered all the obvious Christmas stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know what? I found A Christmas Carol and I was like, shit, Charles Dickens.
It's perfect for December.
And then was put through the tea spilling ringer. Oh my God.
Drama llama. Oh my God. And poor Catherine. That's so sad.
I feel awful for Catherine. I do want to look up. Okay, yeah, it's the website that you can find it all on is charlesdickensinfo.com.
Okay.
Let's see. Apparently there was only one child, and that was Kate, that stood up for her mother against her father when they separated. Oh, it was this one. Okay, it was Kate. Charles called Kate Lucifer Box within the family because of her fiery temper.
Oh my God. Lucifer Box?
Lucifer Box. And apparently one of the documentaries said that Kate and him had the most in common. And they were actually kind of close. So you know what? Maybe she is complicated too. I don't know. But it's real funny.
Lucifer Box. I'm not going to get over that.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine calling your own child a Lucifer Box?
I could imagine it, yes.
What spotted Satan are you?
Y'all know I love my kids more than life. My daughter, 5 years old, while we were heading home from a funeral, sprinkled beef jerky in the back of the car, in the switch case, everything. And we were calm about it, and we were like, you don't do that. 1, beef jerky's freaking expensive. Okay? Yes. That's rude. 2, why are you wasting food and you're making a holy mess in this car? Mm-hmm. So Nick said, tomorrow morning, because we got home too late for her to do it that night. So tomorrow morning, you will be picking up all the beef jerky out of the car. And she went, no, I won't. And we were both like, oh, yes, you will. So next morning comes, and they had skipped a couple days on their advent calendar, and we were like, you cannot open your advent calendar until that beef jerky is picked up and your room is clean. And she went, that's not even fair. It's not even my car. It's not even my car. And we had to sit her down and explain to her that it was worse, that it wasn't her car and she messed it up like that. And it took her 3 hours, but she got it done.
I bet she complained and whined the entire time, too.
She's 5. And she had the, mental thought process to be like, that's not my car. I shouldn't have to be cleaning it. That's not fair.
God. Oh my God, that is so funny.
I looked at Nick and I whispered to him, she's about to catch these hands. I was so bad. I would obviously never do that.
No.
Come get your girl.
She's fucking around and she's about to find out.
It's like one of those moments where you're like, you can't hit kids. You can't hit kids. You can't do it.
Oh my God.
And I know I know what the problem is. She's too much like me. When
She's a sarcastic butthead, just like her mama.
I've done this. I know it. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, that is so fucking funny. Why do I have to clean it? It's not even my car.
Yeah.
I love her so much.
I do too. She's a mess, but why'd you put it in the switch case? That was just malicious.
You want to break your switch? It's how you break your switch or get bugs in it.
For real. I tell you, you want ants? That's how you get ants.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, we should do socials.
Let's do socials. Yeah, we're getting creeping on 2 hours here.
Yeah. Oops. Say doodles. Okay, so if you like this, you can find us on Facebook,
Ill-Equipped History Podcast Group and Page,
Instagram
at Ill-Equipped History,
TikTok, where we promise we'll post more things. I swear.
At Ill-Equipped History. We've been busy.
Yeah, it's Christmas time, guys. Gmail, you can email us. Please, come just chitty chat with us.
Do it at ill-equippedhistory@gmail.com.
And Patreon.
Patreon.com/ill-equippedhistory. Please sign up for our bonus episodes. Our Christmas one was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Spooky.
It was super spooky. It was super fun. And also on Patreon, you can figure out who Dr. Brown is and what he did for womankind everywhere.
A medical marvel, that one.
We should make that into a t-shirt. Dr. Brown.
Medical marvel.
Dr. Brown, a medical marvel.
For women's health everywhere.
For women's health. A true advocate. Okay. So, if you get married, don't be a dick to your wife.
Please don't.
If she continues to get pregnant, just know that that's your fault too.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, go write a book or something.
Write the next Christmas Carol.
Yeah. I'd like to see like a modern Christmas Carol. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!